Okay, hello, good morning. This is Mother Storm from St. James the Less, the rector, and this is video number 3 or maybe 4 of our Bible marathon, our Bible read through that many of us in this church are doing. We're reading 3 chapters a day, and we are now on Leviticus. These videos are primarily, they're for anyone, but primarily those who couldn't be here on Sunday morning. We meet weekly. We are now in the book of Leviticus, and this is kind of where people give up. And so I've been encouraging you more than ever this past week to stick with it, don't give up. Leviticus is mercifully the shortest of the first 5 books of the Old Testament, the Torah or the Pentateuch. So it's the shortest. This may be the shortest video I've done yet because I'm not that knowledgeable about Leviticus. But it has two main sources, sort of the priestly writings. I mean, this was written by, it's thought, you can kind of tell, some group of priests in some setting. It's always kind of hard to figure out exactly what groups produce these documents and when and why. But it's a collection of sort of priestly writings, we call them, and also the Holiness Code, which we're going to be really focusing on in our reading this week and discussing on Sunday. I thought what I would do is first read a little tiny blurb from Robert Alter. This is a wonderful book, and he talks a little bit about Mary Douglas's writings on Leviticus. She has a book called Leviticus as Literature, which is very famous, but he talks a little bit about that and then says this. None of this, what he wrote above, I suspect, really mitigates the sense of strangeness that people of our own era are likely to feel in reading Leviticus. The preoccupation with dermatological conditions, genital discharges, mildew, the recipes for fritters and breads used in the cult, and the dissection of animals and the distinctions among their various inner organs does not correspond to modern assumptions about the content of great sacred literature, I should say. So anyway, you are not alone, whether Christian or Jewish. This can seem like strange, not all entirely sacred stuff, but it's important to read. And let me just go through a couple of the things that we discussed around this table. It was actually one of the best conversations we've had here together. So go figure. We talked about some of the familiarity with all of these rules around the appointments and accoutrements around the temple. I mean, we are Episcopalians, and if you've ever seen an altar guild manual, you know we're kind of obsessed with similar things. So we talked a little bit about that. We talked about all of the different kinds of offerings for atonement and all the blood. We talked about blood as life and the importance of the value placed on life that you see so much throughout this book. We talked about how we see in this book people defining themselves. It's possible that some of this literature was compiled and or written around the time that the Jewish people were taken into exile in Babylon. And so you can really see how in the wake of their temple having been destroyed, they would set all this down so that when they return, they would be able to sort of shape and define themselves very quickly again around this temple. So we talked a little bit about that. And of course, we talked about all of the things being dashed against the altar and a little bit about maybe what the temple would have looked like and so on and so forth. Lecture number 10 in the Yale series by Christine Hayes is worth listening to, but if you focus mainly on just getting through your reading. Behind me is a board where with a few other things that we talked about. Lex Talionis, I'm going to hold off on that because it's actually part of next week's reading. We talked about the importance of welcoming the stranger that we get in the latter part of Exodus 22 and 23, because you yourselves were once strangers in a strange land. That is pervasive in Jewish thinking then and now. We talked about caring for the poor in Leviticus, letting people glean the fields. That comes up again, although in a slightly lesser form in Deuteronomy. Leviticus is very concerned about the poor and caring for those who have less or nothing at all. We talked about this idea of corporate and generational sin, which is kind of intuitive, right? I mean, we do see sin passed down through generations or the effects of things done or not done in a family. And finally, we talked about this idea of defiling the land with our acts and our sins, which is a strong theme in Leviticus, and also, my goodness, in our contemporary world. So there's a lot in here. It's a little slow going in the reading, but as I said, it's the shortest book. And once you're through this, if you can make it through this, you're going to make it all the way to Revelation. So stick with it. Thanks for watching this video. Join us if you can on Sunday in the Isom Room at 9:45, and keep on reading. Be well.